And I'm just going to initially just recognize Sergeant Bell, who came to me and actually to the organization said, I'd like to bring wounded warriors to the Peterborough Police Service. Having worked in two previous police organizations where Wounded Warriors was a partner with those police services, I immediately latched onto the idea and I was wholeheartedly supportive of bringing this to our police services board. And I can tell you that the board was very supportive of this partnership because it speaks very much to what we're trying to accomplish here, and that's the wellness of our members. Now, I know that in 2013, Wounded Warriors was started really to support and honor our ill and injured veterans, and it continued to grow and develop and support our law enforcement partners and other police and first response agencies, which is fantastic. And I have to say that I think of us as police as, well, really guardians with a spirit of warriors, because we're guardians of community and public safety, but we have the spirit of warriors out and resilience in our community. So that's where I see that we fit nicely with the Wounded Warriors program and the history of the Wounded Warriors. I also know that as we work towards the creation of our new strategic plan, which will launch shortly here for the police service, that one of our main three pillars is investing in our people. And I see that the connection and the partnership with Wounded Warriors is just that. It's another investment in our people. This is an opportunity for us to continue to support our members and ensure that they have yet one more tool to help keep them healthy. I can tell you that there are people in this organization who have experienced things in their careers that would be overwhelming for many, and yet I am humbled by the fact that they remain resilient. They come back to work every day. And for me personally, I speak about them. I speak about their resilience and their triumphs for staying here and continuing to serve our community. It's said many times that if our members are not healthy, they're not in a position to be able to serve our community. So I support whatever we can do to ensure that our community remains officers serve them. It would be remiss. I'm going to ask, and I know we're going to have a few comments up here, but I just want Sergeant Bell to come over here for a quick second because I would like to thank Sergeant Bell very much for bringing Wounded Warriors to us here. So it's very much appreciate you championing that, and as head of our peer support unit, we will continue to be. I think at this particular point, we're going to invite.
Thanks, Chief. I need to apologize to the chief publicly because I said, it's nice to meet you today, Chief. And he said, well, don't you remember me? And I do now, but I didn't when he first walked in, from different hats, different uniforms. But this is, coming from York and from London, to York in particular being our first ever police service partner in the history of Wounded Warriors Canada. And the history of the organization is really kind of what I want to set up and make sure that everybody is aware kind of how we got here today, just to a little extent. Is obviously stood up in 2013, as the chief said, and just kind of developed as a mental health foundation. So taking in support from Canadians and giving it back out to third-party community providers across the country. Want to get in on the pointier end of the spear, having identified lots of gaps in care, and none of us were going to be around if we were just going to be adjudicating who gets how much funding and for how long. We really wanted to see more kind of transformational impact and service delivery for those who need it. In 2015, our Couples Overcoming Post-Traumatic Stress Everyday COPE program was born, which is really where Wounded Warriors Canada took the next big leap, becoming a mental health service provider through and through. So all of that goodwill, all that support from Canadians now stays into Wounded Warriors Canada, goes out in through health services and direct to care. And on that note, I'd be remiss if I wasn't going to point out just a couple of people on that right. I don't mean to do this to you, but I will. We have Patrick and Miranda, Patrick and Dave and the team here, Rebecca, all here from the community of Peterborough, that are ambassadors truly of the organization, that help us do what we do and invest in those programs and services that we have. We had a little slogan called "In This Together." This was ours before COVID, despite what anybody will say, but it was in 2018 we came up with that slogan, but it was meant to reflect all this incredible support we have from Canadians like these four here that are really the allow us the ability to be reflexive and adaptive and respond to the ever-changing and evolving needs of our veterans, our first responders, and their families. And that that just says a lot to why we're here, and the evolution of the organization, which kept growing and growing after the program inception of COPE. But really, our next big leap as an organization was in 2016. We wouldn't be here standing before you today if we had not made that expansion to include first responders into our spectrum of care, into the mandate of admission of Wounded Warriors Canada. And I am certainly thankful that we did. They've brought all of you have brought so much to the organization nationally. And we have a lot of downstream counseling services, which is our specialization, group-based, residentially facilitating counseling services for individuals, for couples, for spouses, for surviving families, and for kids. But we had never really seen ourselves as an upstream training provider. But we felt we really needed to be doing this if we were going to get ahead of anything, get ahead of the operational stress injury need that we were seeing, yet really also seeing not a lot being done to address this from a proactive perspective, from a service and training perspective, that is. And that's what happened when first responders were coming into our group counseling programs, now interspersed with a veteran, a paramedic, a firefighter, a police officer, whoever comes in that particular group. First responders saying, this is transformational, it's very powerful, but why am I learning about this now? I wish I had known about this so much earlier in my career. And they were referring to all that psychoeducation, trauma fundamentals, skill-based learning that they would say I'd be using this on the job if I was healthy enough to be doing that right now, as we know, and with many people not being in that position at that time downstream. So it was because of our expansion to include first responders that programs like our Before Operational Stress BOSS program was founded in 2018, that just in 2022 alone, 77,000 first responders and healthcare workers actually access BOSS online in 1 year. If you had told me now we're on our flip the page 2024, our second decade of impacted Wounded Warriors Canada, if you had told me 10 years ago that 77,000 uniformed service members in Canada would access one counseling training program, I would have told you not a chance. We just weren't there. But I'm pleased to tell you all today that we definitely are here now. So all of that forward movement, all that proactivity started with BOSS, now with peer support training, and we'll be doing some work together around peer support training and train the trainer programs. All this stuff we have now and are bringing to the Canadian public safety community that is a result of first responders telling us and asking of us to do to provide that for the employers, for organizations, and ultimately for members themselves. So I think that speaks a little bit to our organization's kind of mandate, that we don't kind of build services and programs and say, here, we're telling you what you need. We always have that ear to the ground and listen, and then try to respond to the gaps and services that you're telling us that you need. I think that's kind of the unique thing about Wounded Warriors Canada and how we've continued to evolve and become part of organizations like we are a part of now here with Peterborough Police, which of course leads me to why I'm standing here today. The partnership agreement, the partnership, what does it mean? Why? Well, when we made the expansion to include first responders, as I mentioned, very different than the Canadian Armed Forces for a number of reasons, but I would say most specifically, there are two departments for all of Canada for our military and veterans, the Department of National Defence and Veterans Affairs Canada. And it's a lot easier to get information out across the country to the people that we serve and help through two channels. That is not the case in the public safety realm, as we don't need to tell you. This chief came from London and York is an example, and now leading this service. So a lot of movement and people, different services, siloed in municipalities and regional governments and provincial governments and national governments. And our concern was, once we knew the programs were going to be helpful for first responders, just as they have been since 2013 for veterans, how are we going to get our information out to the people that would need it in the public safety community? We did not want it to be ad hoc. I knew, Chief knew me, somehow a member of the Peterborough Paramedic Service would benefit. That's not good enough. It can't be ad hoc. We need to formally work together. So it's not cold calling or friend calling or what have you. It's formally entrenched services and access. There's no front of the line. There's no, you're going to get pulled in because someone knows somebody. It's about, everyone just applying and getting access to these services that they need and deserve. But we needed to make sure it was more formally structured. And that's exactly what we started to do. In 2018, our first partnered service was with the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary in St. John's. We've done this now over 100 times in every province and territory in the country, and continuing to do that. Just last week, we were in Oka, Quebec, with the First Nations Paramedic Service doing the same thing. Our first service partner in Quebec, our first with an Indigenous first responder service in the country, and now here in Peterborough. So what it actually means is if Jen needs help with peer support training, she has a direct line into health services, and our director of health service staying there, Phil Ralph, that will begin to make things happen a lot faster. And that's on the proactive upstream side. We kind of provide core services, so we're trying to make sure that everything that we do, be it training or counseling, is in that core service element, i.e. not in the WSIB stream. Ideally, if we can get at this, get people the skills to know what to look for in themselves, organizations learn how to have these conversations. We see it all the time. It translates into first responders accessing care much earlier than we have seen historically, to the extent that the vast majority, over 90% of our first responder counseling clients, are still actively employed. It's where we want to be. That's 100% best case scenario for a service provider like Wounded Warriors Canada. So that's really what today's about. And I'll just say, on the worst of days example, what these partnerships bring. When Constable Hong was murdered there in September of 22, thankful, and then everything that we've seen in the last 16 months thereafter from a line of duty death perspective, thankfully we were partnered with every one of those services before those tragedies occurred, and have done so much with all of those organizations and those surviving families since those horrible days. But I think that's the worst case example of why these partnerships are very important, outside and around all that we do every single day. So anyway, all that to say, we're going to be doing lots of things together. This is just day one of a long-term working relationship that is about making your members and their families feel safe, feel supported, feel understood, and hopefully feel comfortable enough to access care through our services that they need and deserve. Thank you.
Well, nervous. I didn't expect so many people. I just want to start by thanking a few people. First, I'd like to thank Staff Sergeant Craig Ralph, who started our peer support team. So, without you, Craig, we wouldn't be here today. Thank you for everything you've done over the years. I'd like to thank Detective Constable Adrian Sharp, who's not here. She's a member of our team, but she is the one who brought Wounded Warriors. So, thank you to Adrian, and thank you to Bess and our police service board, who have been 100% supportive of this partnership, and it's outstanding that they support and understand the importance of supporting our members for mental health and their well-being. To speak to, every day our members face traumatic incidents that can have a lasting impact, and that can be our dispatchers who are answering the phone, listening to the radio, the officers who arrive on scene, to the ICU sitting, listening over the radio, to our data entry clerks who are reading our reports and putting them on the system, to our civilian staff upstairs who are also reading our reports. And reading these things can have an impact on people who don't know how much that can have. So our partnership with Wounded Warriors, bringing these opportunities forward is just amazing. It allows all of our members access to help as needed. I'd just like to add, we recognize there isn't one specific program or organization that has a 100% solution when it comes to mental health. But this partnership is a great step in the right direction. What's really great about this is it offers assistance to members, families, and children, which is something sometimes that gets forgotten. We often forget that our spouses, children, and how our work impacts them. So, thank Scott and Phil for coming today, and thank you to Wounded Warriors for getting us started. And we're very excited.
Thanks, Jen. Thank you.